Hi everyone, welcome to the Visual Builder Office Hours presentation. Today you've got a guest speaker from the Oracle Analytics product management team. So my name is Mike, and the area that I work on in analytics is how developers can use the content that people can build in Oracle Analytics within their own websites or applications. And today, I'll be telling you about a new component that we have just made available for Visual Builder, which will allow you to build custom applications with content from Oracle Analytics. So I'm kind of guessing that folks attending this and hopefully watching the recording afterwards will be either coming from a background where you know Visual Builder, or you may know Oracle Analytics. So I've prepared a product overview for each of those products so that hopefully when we get into the detail of our component, then we're all kind of on the same page. So both of the products that I'll be talking about are going to be components of the Oracle Cloud Platform. So we'll start off by talking about analytics. So analytics is an augmented analytics platform, and what that means is augmented is a term that was coined by the analyst firm Gartner, and it refers to a analytics platform that makes use of machine learning or AI behind the scenes to add automation to the analytics that the end users can generate. It also means that the platform can use natural language in certain forms. So, for example, being able to ask queries of the analytics system using language, as well as being able to automatically describe the analytics that you're seeing, for example, in a data visualization in a natural language form. So Oracle Analytics can connect to many different data sources. Obviously we can connect to Oracle data sources, but typically when people are performing analytics, they want to be able to get data from pretty much anywhere. We have quite rich data, we call it data preparation and enrichment capabilities. So once you've either imported data, let's say from a spreadsheet, or you've connected to a database, then Oracle Analytics will take a look at the data that you're bringing into the system, and we have kind of machine learning techniques to understand what that data is that you're bringing in. So that will make suggestions for you in terms of how you can enrich it, or how you can, for example, one good example is to automatically recognize potentially sensitive data, so for example, like a credit card or a social security number, and offer to obfuscate that. Data visualization and geospatial visualizations are key to Oracle Analytics. And as I've already touched upon, kind of machine learning aspect, you can train a machine learning model and then apply that model to your data from within analytics. And we have mobile applications as well for the analytics platform. So the kind of the workflow for using analytics is to connect to your data sources, or to upload a data source. Depending on what type of analytics you're doing, you may want to do some data modeling. If you're building an enterprise analytics system, you may want to build what we call a semantic layer between the source data and your end users that can help them understand where the data is coming from, and you can create metadata within a sort of business language to help them use the system. Once the data connections have been made, there may be some preparation, and I kind of touched upon that in the earlier slide. Analytics is all about asking questions of the data, and having your end users able to explore that data in visual ways means that we have a rich library of different types of data visualizations. And then the experience, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So obviously, users of Oracle Analytics can access the content that they are either creating or having shared with them through Oracle Analytics. But something that interests me is being able to create more of a custom application using the next product that I'll be talking about, which is Visual Builder. So Visual Builder is a low-code development platform. I'll be honest, I'm a novice to Visual Builder, but I'm going to call out some of the relevant points that I've found useful from my perspective, coming from an analytics background and using that low-code development platform to build quite quickly quite useful applications. So it is, and I can concur, quite easy to use. The layout of Visual Builder is quite logical. I have some kind of basic knowledge of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and I've found from my usage of Visual Builder that once I've gone through some of the basic kind of tutorials and getting up to speed with Visual Builder, then it is a very productive environment to work in and kind of very logical in terms of how you can use the various aspects of Visual Builder. And I'll kind of go through some of those aspects of Visual Builder that I've been using with the analytics component that we're talking about today. Any kind of questions, deep questions that you have on Visual Builder, I have Brian and Laura from the Visual Builder product management team also on the call to help with any of those VB questions. Any questions that you have on analytics, then I will take a look at those at the end of the call. So Visual Builder, here I've got a screenshot of the Visual Builder UI. So it's like a web-based application platform. And as you can see, I have already included analytics in there. But the web components that it's using are based on Oracle Jet. And Oracle Analytics, the data visualization part of Oracle Analytics is also based on Oracle Jet. So you can kind of see that there's a synergy there between those two components. As the bullet points say, it's kind of very easy to add content to your application page by dragging it over, and being able to see a live preview is also really useful, especially when you're dealing with embedded analytics content, because that will refresh in a live manner when you're building your applications and when you're debugging. Seeing the property inspectors is also quite useful, and the component that we've built takes full advantage of the property inspectors. And as it says, you can add additional web components, and we'll kind of come on to the detail that we've done there. Mobile applications, really mobile is one of the main, if not the sort of predominant platform that people are consuming content these days. And we certainly find that within the analytics team. And we have analytics specific mobile applications, but being able to create mobile applications in Visual Builder, I've found to be really, really quite intuitive. There is a separate area for building mobile specific applications, and this kind of the simulator way of building an application really kind of helps to understand how your content will look on a mobile device. And the component that we're talking about today works just as well on the mobile devices as it does on a web device. Low code, it's a low code platform, but there's a very easy way to see the code behind the applications that you're building. I mentioned that I'm a novice when it comes to building applications, certainly with Visual Builder, and I found that being able to access the code wasn't intimidating at all. It was very useful, in fact, and it kind of helps you learn about what you're actually building. And you can take that knowledge and use it for troubleshooting. You can use it to help you build other applications as well. So yeah, that's a kind of very valuable side to Visual Builder I found. And the platform is extendable, and that's kind of where we come in really with this component that we've built for Visual Builder to help you embed analytic content. So we're introducing the Oracle Analytics web component, and as I think I've touched on already, it's an easy way to embed analytics canvases into a Visual Builder app. So here you can see the README for the analytics component. It's called Oracle Analytics Project. If you are looking to use this, you should find this within your Visual Builder instance. It's available on the public cloud. So if you go to your Visual Builder instance and then search on Analytics, and then it should show up, and you can install that component within the applications that you wish to use it in. So the idea being is that it allows you to build low-code applications, using both mobile and web apps. So here we've got like a little video that's running, just showing some basic navigation capabilities, but sourcing the visualizations from Oracle Analytics. And we'll take a deeper look at how you can build these types of applications in a moment. You can also add in context analytics to an existing application. So this is a sample application from the Visual Builder team, and these visualizations are all from Visual Builder, and they're sourcing data from the relevant business objects within Visual Builder. Now, let's say that I wanted to take this content, which is, we're now looking at Oracle Analytics. So we have a combo chart here of a line and a bar chart. And this is starting to, if you're from a VB background, this is starting to give you an idea now of how Oracle Analytics works. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about that in a few slides' time. But you can see on the left-hand side here, we have the available data items that I can add to my analytics visualizations. So you can see I've populated two values. So I have two y-axes, one on the left and one on the right. And then on the x-axis, I have my order date. So I'm looking at, in this particular case, sales and quantity ordered by date. Now, I want to be able to incorporate that within the sample application that we just saw from Visual Builder. So here we're in Visual Builder, and I've pointed out, here you can see on the left, you've got the structure of the page, the application page, and I've highlighted the analytics component that I've added into this project. And within that page, I've replaced a couple of those visualizations with items which are embedded now from Oracle Analytics. And here on the right-hand side in the properties pane, you can see the analytics reference. So the easiest options, the simplest options are the host of your analytics instance in the cloud, and then the project path, which you're using to embed the content into this application. And once you've done that, we now see the analytics content, but within the context of our existing application. Now, when you embed analytics content into a Visual Builder app, what you're doing is referencing content from the analytics catalog. Now, I may want to change the view that I've got embedded in the Visual Builder app to this natural language description of that visualization. And this is all generated automatically by the analytics tool. And what I can do is, by just making the change on the analytics side, you would then see this natural language description within your custom application. So it's very flexible in terms of being able to add analytics content, either visualizations or taking advantage of some of the capabilities that are in Oracle Analytics within your VB applications. So if you're a VB expert, you may be thinking, well, we already can do visualizations and we can sort of source data within the VB application. Why would I want to consider embedding analytics? And really the benefits that you get by embedding analytics, so that you can take advantage of all the kind of stream of the analytic workflow that we took a look at the start of the presentation. So connecting to multiple data sources, joining those data sources, using the machine learning that we have for data preparation and enrichment, as well as the various sorts of spatial and natural language capabilities that analytics can offer. And as I said, we're embedding a reference to the canvas. So any changes that you want to make, you can make within the analytics canvas itself, and then those changes will immediately be seen within the application. And also, as you can see on the right-hand side, we offer kind of some interactivity as well with the embedded content. So here you can see that we're sorting on sales within this embedded analytic visualization, and we can also zoom on that chart. So by embedding content from Oracle Analytics, we kind of get all this for free when we embed it into a Visual Builder application. All right, so let's now take a look at the workflow from start to finish in terms of how you can build an analytic application using our analytics component within Visual Builder. So you'll need instances of analytics and Visual Builder, and ideally they need to be within the same Oracle Cloud tenancy. That will make your security setup a lot easier because your users will all exist within the same Identity Cloud Service or IDCS. Once you have those two instances available, then because we're going to be looking at embedding content from analytics into Visual Builder, we need to make sure that we have our safe domains defined correctly within both analytics. And on the top here, you can see where that is within the analytics. We have something called the console. So if you're an administrator user within analytics, you can add the safe domain of your VB instance. And then on the other side, on Visual Builder, you can define allowed origins, and you would specify the analytics instance within an allowed origin. So this is making sure that all the cross-origin settings and allowed origins are all configured appropriately, so all the different components can talk to each other. Depending on the type of application that you're building, you may also need to set the cross-origin resource sharing settings within the Oracle Identity Management Console as well. So that's just something to be aware of if you're having issues when embedding content from analytics and trying to view it in the live mode. When you're building your analytics content, because you're sharing it in an application, make sure that your projects are stored within the shared folder section of the analytics catalog. If you're sharing it with specific users or you have more of a limited audience for your application, then make sure that the right users got access to that project. Depending on how wide the audience is for your application, consider the role within Oracle Analytics that you're using for any connectivity. So for example, a DV consumer is typically a role that we would give to users who can only see content and not create any content within analytics. That's kind of a typical user for that sort of use case. All right, so creating the analytics content. These are like the building blocks that we're going to be using within our Visual Builder application. So first up, we're going to connect to the data sources. They could be Oracle databases, it could be non-Oracle databases, or we could be uploading data from spreadsheets. We may be looking at doing some machine learning, so training certain types of models using a portion of the data, and then once you've got that model, you can apply it to even more of the data that's coming in to make predictions based on that type of ML that you want to do. If you have more of a data, well, we call it a data flow, which is basically a process where you can add multiple data sources, you can join them, you can filter them, and then you can essentially create a new data source which you can then use within your analytics project. In terms of some development choices when using analytics, you have, for example, are you building something from scratch, in which case you would want to create new projects within analytics, or you may be looking at building an application with content that already exists. Another kind of development choice is within analytics, this is called the canvas, and this is where you can add either a single or multiple visualizations to that canvas page. So depending on the type of application that you're building, you will have a choice as to whether you do that. So for example, one approach that we recommend if you're building a purely custom application could be to create a project, and then the visualizations that you want to embed in your application, you would have one per canvas page. Filtering is key with any sort of form of analytics, and you would want to decide whether you do that within the analytics canvas or whether you are going to offer your end users the ability to do that within the application. And then creating a navigation experience is another aspect of building this type of application. And we'll kind of take a look at all these and how you achieve this with the analytics component. Some terminology for those of you who are not familiar with Oracle Analytics yet. So this is our analytics canvas. And in this case, I have a single canvas, which is called Auto Fit. And then each of these visualizations is a separate, it's kind of like a UI component in terms of using a VB kind of term. So we can drag these over onto the canvas. And because we have a single canvas, they're all linked. So for example, if I click here on an area of this United States map, then other related parts of the data would light up. So just some terminology. So we've got the data visualization. We have what we call an on-canvas filter. So there are numerous ways to filter on data within Oracle Analytics. An on-canvas filter gives the developer a way of providing quite a curated way of filtering. So here I'm saying I can only filter on year on this filter, and on the right-hand side, I'm filtering on region. Along the top, you can see we have something called the filter bar. And that gives me, as an end user, a lot more capabilities for adding filters onto my canvas. And as you'll see shortly, we provide a checkbox to turn that on or off when you're embedding into a custom application. There are a couple of references that you will need when using the analytics component. So we have something called the developer tab. And on the top right-hand side, using that hamburger, I can click on that and then choose the developer menu option that appears. And this is where I start to get the information from analytics that I'm going to use within VB when I'm embedding analytics. So I mentioned the analytics host. So here you can actually see the host, and you only need to take the bit of the host string from HTTPS up to .com. What you're looking at is actually the code snippets that you would use if you were embedding into like a pure HTML or a JET command line type environment. So we have this link to embedding.js. However, what the VB analytics component does, it will take care of all these. It will take care of managing what we call the embedding framework for analytics within the context of a VB application. So that means that you don't have to kind of start delving through, some of the files which make up your VB application, because the component will take care of all that for you. And it also manages, whether the embedding.js has been downloaded to the DOM, and it will make sure that if any properties change, then they are taken care of. And essentially, the web component has been built using web component standards, and we've kind of collaborated with the Visual Builder team on creating the component. The other key bits of information that you need are the project path. So this is where the project, your analytics project, is stored within the analytics catalog, and that's how you would reference it within the VB components. And then you can see for each of the canvases within our analytics, I have options which will show me the active page. So we have either a canvas or insight. We're going to be working predominantly with canvases, and then the active tab ID. So that's a reference that you would use within the analytics component. And we'll see as we progress through the presentation that that's useful, because you can then use that to programmatically build a navigation experience by changing that reference of the canvas within the component. So in terms of creating the Visual Builder app, and this is more useful if you're not familiar with Visual Builder. So if you've got an analytics background, then within Visual Builder, once you've got your Visual Builder instance and you've connected to the Visual Builder product, the web product to build apps, then you have this option to create an application. And then once you've got an application created, you can then create either a web or a mobile app within that application. And that kind of gives you a number of templates, and you can see navigation items that you can set up front. So that saves you a lot of time in terms of giving you a very useful template and a very kind of natural template, if you like, for embedding analytics content into that and giving your end users that navigation experience. Once you've created your web or your mobile application, the next thing to do is to install the analytics component. So I mentioned at the start of the call that that's available within the Visual Builder Component Exchange. And if you search for analytics, you should see the Oracle Analytics project component. And then you can install that component within your application. So every time you create a sort of top level application, you need to do this. Any updates that we make to the component are flagged, and the life cycle is pretty easy. So if you are using the component and we push an update, then you'll see that there's an update available, and then you can install that update within a kind of a new version of your Visual Builder application. So this is how it looks once you've installed the analytics component within your Visual Builder application. So again, just a kind of a quick tour for those who are not that familiar with VB but have attended from the analytics side. Here you can see on the left-hand side, we have two options: structure, which is the page structure, and we'll see a bit more about that later, and then the available components. So these, I mentioned that there's a lot of Oracle Jet components within Visual Builder, so you can drag these over. You'll notice that the visualizations will look very similar to those from Oracle Analytics. As I said, Oracle Analytics is built using Oracle Jet. I've got a Flex container that I've added to my page. I have 3 pages that I've defined when I created the application from the template. So sales, orders, and customers. And then on the right-hand side, I have the properties for, in this case, my Flex container. So you can drag over the analytics project component into that Flex container, and then you can start building up your application. All right, so let's take a look at actually building the analytics application. So in terms of defining the page that you're going to show for your application, it's important to create the page structure up front. So if you don't have, for example, I'm using a Flex container, which is in a Flex row, and then I'm added my project to the Flex container. If you don't have that sort of structure in place, you may add the project to your page, but you may not see anything until you've made some changes to that sort of page structure. That's kind of just something to be aware of. And then you would populate the analytics host and project path that you see on the right-hand side, using that information that we saw within the developer tab of the Oracle Analytics project. So we've got the host, the project path, we're embedding canvases, and by default, you see a display tab of 1. But you can change that display tab to any of the canvases that you have available. And that number that you need to reference, again, was available in the developer tab. In terms of defining the app page, so here we have on the top, you can see that we have a single analytics component within my Flex container. So I've populated the host and the project path. And in this case, I'm looking at display tab 2. Along the bottom, I've added 2 components to the page. And in this particular case, I've made some changes to the style property of the analytics project. Some kind of basic styling here just to change the size. I wanted to have 2 items next to each other on the page. So in terms of building, let's start off by talking about how to build a navigation experience for your analytic application. So I've added a navigation list component to the page, and on the page structure, you can see how that navigation list sits within, the overall page structure with the flex items. So that's on the left-hand side of the page. And then I have my analytics project component, which is taking up, as you'd expect, most of the real estate on the right-hand side. Now, what I have done to provide the navigation experience is to map a variable, in this case called canvas ID, to the display tab that we're going to reference. So whereas before I was using a specific number, here I'm actually changing that dynamically. So when the user clicks on the navigation items, we then have an action chain which will assign the canvas ID variable to the appropriate number for the visualization that I'd like to show. And along the bottom here, you can kind of see the action chain and then the variable assignment. And here you can see once I click on there, I'd like to assign that to canvas ID 9. That's obviously mapped to my display tab, and then my canvas with reference 9 will show on the page. So this is just a little bit bigger to kind of show you that sort of page layout. But here is a video of how that looks. So it's kind of a simple example, but it kind of just gives you an idea of how you can build up a navigation experience. And obviously that can get as sophisticated as you like within VB using the embedded analytics component. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is filtering. So I mentioned earlier that filtering is really important when doing analytics. It's all about asking questions of your data and trying to narrow down what you're interested in to try and solve problems, really. Now, the analytics component has got a checkbox, which I've highlighted along the top, which is show filter bar. And that really is the easiest way of providing filtering for your end users. Now, if you look at the video on the right-hand side, you can see that I'm running through, clicking on there to add filter, and then you can see all the available items. You click on that, you get a list of values which you can choose from. And then behind the scenes there, you can see that the data is changing dynamically as I add values, which are coming from the analytics reference canvas. I can add additional filters. So here we're filtering on the region equals west. Now I can also disable those filters to go back to my original state. So that's a very flexible way of offering filtering capabilities to your end users. But there may be a scenario or an application that you're building whereby you don't want to give your end users that much flexibility when it comes to creating filters. So that's why we have the checkbox to show or hide the filter bar. Now, if you are hiding that filter bar, you could potentially use the on-canvas filters that we saw earlier on in the presentation. Or we also have a programmatic way of being able to apply filters to your embedded content. So we have a JSON representation of a filter, which is a lot more flexible. So let's take a look at a few examples of that. So here we have the properties bar of the analytics project, and you can see that I'm highlighting here the filters property. So this is an example on the left-hand side of the JSON representation that we need to populate within there to apply filters to our canvas. So there are a few things to call out. So the first one is the column formula. I'll show you where you get that in a moment. The name of the column, region, and then we have a number of operators that are supported, such as in or between or greater or less than. Then we just say, is it numeric or is it date? And then we can decide whether to either have literal values to filter on. And that could be useful if you just wanted to provide a very limited or a specific, define a limited view that your end users see. of the application, but more typically, you're going to be replacing those with arrays or strings, and we'll see some examples of those in a moment. Okay, so where do you get the reference to the column? So if you recall, I've mentioned the Developer tab within Oracle Analytics a couple of times already, and that was, we're looking at, in those cases, we were looking at the Embed tab, and that will show us the reference to our canvas. Here we're looking at the JSON tab, and within that JSON, you can scroll down and search for the column that you wish to apply the filter to within Visual Builder. So here we have product subcategory, and the information that I need to copy over would be the expression of that column. And that expression is showing me essentially the, it's like the lineage, if you like, for that particular column. So it says it's coming from a particular data source, which is called sample order lines, and then columns, and then product subcategory. So we need to make a note of that. And then the A display values is what we want to actually filter that column on. So in this example, we're filtering on the literal value. Here we are in the expression editor. So within the component, if you click on the sort of like the function little icon that appears, when you hover over that area of the web component properties, then you can copy this JSON literally like this into the expression editor. And then when you save it, that will immediately be applied, if you're in live mode, to your Visual Builder application view. So here for literal values, we've got an array, and we're just adding items with quotes and then separated by commas. However, it's more likely that this is probably how you're more likely going to want to build a filtering mechanism within your analytic applications. So here I'm using a UI component, which is a select many, and there are a couple of aspects to building up a user interaction where we're going to select from a list of values. So we need to provide for example, a business object, which is going to provide those lists of values to my select many UI component. And then once the user has selected those, we need to store them somewhere. So we're going to need to store those. In this case, we're going to store them in an array. And this is an example of the JSON that you would use to have this kind of following end user experience. So I'm just going to play this video. And you can see when you click on the select menu as an end user, you can either search or you can scroll through that list of values. And this changes in real time. So I have some data for Bristol. I can then choose Seattle. So again, this kind of selection is getting passed to that array. And then I'm using this JSON representation within my analytics component to filter on those array values. So if you didn't have an array, if you were just choosing from a single value, then you would need to put the array square brackets around whatever variable you were referencing for A display values. So yeah, this is now starting to get quite interesting in terms of the user experience that we can start to build out. So we've looked at navigation, how you can navigate through different analytic canvases within your VB application. Combine that with filtering, so users can now choose from lists of values as to which values that they are looking at, and start to drill into the information that interests them in particular. You may want to filter on multiple columns, and I had a lot of fun putting this particular example together. So here we have the JSON that would be used to filter on multiple columns, and here you can see I'm filtering on 2 columns, latitude and longitude. So you may be able to guess where this is going. And the values that I'm filtering on are using the between operator, are a minimum latitude and maximum latitude. So what I have been working on is a mobile application which allows a user to make a selection of a range, and it will do a very crude kind of calculation. I'm not using any of the kind of geospatial kind of formula to work out the distance between 2 points, but in a kind of crude sense, I'm saying, well, I'm based here in the UK in Bristol, and I can use the capabilities of browsers or mobile devices to find my location. Now, these are all libraries and capabilities that are built into VB. So it was very easy for me to be able to build up this application. So here we have a demo video of that application, and I'll just talk through what was happening. And this is actually a recording straight from my mobile phone. So I built a mobile application, and then you'll see in a moment how I got it onto my mobile phone. All right, so the first thing I'm doing is doing the multi-select to choose some cities. So again, this is similar to what we saw before, but in this case, it's on a mobile device. Along the bottom there, I have, just for troubleshooting purposes, using a text field just to show the cities selected. And in some cases that can be useful because, you know, not all cities may have data. So then I have some geospatial data, and then I'm saying, well, I want to look at what's within a range 500 either to the latitude and to the longitude. I can click the button, and then it gets the location of the mobile device, and then it kind of shows me what items are within that range. So let me just quickly scroll back because that went quite quickly. So here I'm located somewhere around here in the UK, and then along the top you can see all the available items, and then I'm using the capability of the mobile device to sort of find out where it is, and then it gives me a close sort of a zoomed in view of the items which are directly closer to me. Okay, so some mobile specific capabilities of Visual Builder, which I found were really useful. Similar to the web application is the ability to use templates and also build, again, navigation items into your templates. And then once you've completed that stage, you then have the more kind of the next level of detail in building up the layout of your page. And again, as somebody with an analytics background who's looking to build, let's say, a specific mobile analytic application, which may be for a particular set of users, then this is a very kind of productive way to work, because I can then take this existing template and then add the Analytics Canvas plugin into that template, and I can get something up and running very quickly. You can deploy your application, you know, either over the web using the URL or using the progressive web application method, which is what I used. So you can point, if you're a developer, you can point your camera at this QR code, and then it will prompt you to log in, and then using your device specific mechanism to add it to the homepage, you then have an icon on your homepage which effectively will act like a mobile application. So yeah, so here we see the Visual Builder development environment. Here we have this kind of simulated view of an iPhone, and we can see the page structure where we have the mobile page template, the Flex container, and then these panels where I've added my analytics component to those panels. Within the analytics the analytics component has a property which is disable mobile layout. Now that's actually intended for a slightly different use case for embedding analytics. So for when you're building a mobile app, you can experiment with setting it on or off, but you know, don't be surprised if you find that it works better in a setting which you weren't expecting, because you're building a mobile app. So you may find that setting it off works better. Okay, so that kind of comes to the main part of our presentation in terms of what we've introduced as a web component that you can use within Visual Builder for building analytic applications. In terms of getting some more information on this, we have created some blogs which talk you through the different aspects of building a web application for analytics using VB. So if you go to this URL, then you'll see, I think the pinned blog is this initial part, and then you have links to each of the areas that we have within the sort of capabilities that we've been going through. So adding your components to the page, laying them out, setting the sizing, the different options that you have for the filtering, navigation, mobile applications, and then the last one is token authentication. So one of the interesting properties that Visual Builder offers is the ability to provide an application which can be accessed anonymously. Now, Oracle Analytics has a way of authenticating content using a token-based mechanism. And on this blog, we have a description of how you can make use of the Oracle's Functions service and the Oracle API Gateway to automatically generate a token for your analytics, embedded analytics content, and then pass that token through the token field within the analytics mobile component to provide a sort of way of publicly accessing the content. Okay, so that's covers everything that I had to go through today. So I'll take a look and see if there are any questions.